Hi everyone, I'm Varun. So today I'm going to start the series of SQL fundamentals. This SQL fundamental series is of 5 parts. Okay, starting from the part 1, I'll go till part 5. So starting from very basic, we will get to till some little advanced topic. Okay, so I'll show you what are the topics which will cover. So basically the first part is how web application store information, how they fetch the required information, how backend interact with data, what is database. Okay, and a lot about relation algebra. Now after that we'll move to the part 2. We'll try to understand what is the big picture, okay, of web development, how the front end, back end, and database actually working together. Now in the second thing, we'll try to understand about retrieving something, okay, retrieving the data. So this is a part of SQL, and here we will try to understand the query of SQL, that is select, distinct, count, where, order by, limit, between, in. Now after that we'll move to the part 3. We will try to understand how to create your own table, and to create your own table you need all these information. Okay, so basically you need an understanding of data types, primary keys, foreign keys, constraint, how to insert, update, delete, how to alter table, how to drop table, what is check constraint. After that we will move to the part 4, and here we will try to understand about aggregate function, group by having. So this is related to if you are querying the database. Okay, so like it is basically directly related to if you are retrieving something from the database. You want some information and you're retrieving it. Now let's move to the part. In the part 5, we will understand joins, inner join, full outer join, left outer join, right outer join. So a little bit advanced topic like from the previous one. And so in this part, in this 5 parts, you will get a very good grasp in SQL. Okay, so starting from the part 1. So let's start from the part 1. These are the topic which we'll cover today. So now let's start the session. So before starting the session, I just want to let you know something. So now, like for each part, I'll use some kind of database. Okay, for each part, I'll use some kind of database. So basically, you need to access this website, sqliteonline.com. You need to directly go to this one. Okay, after going to this one, you have the database which we'll use, that is PostgreSQL. Okay, now in this, just directly click on connect. If you click on connect, then in that case, after that you need to import the database. If you are importing the database, in that case I'll provide you a folder of resources. In the resources you will get like these parts, these 4 parts. Okay, because part 1 is actually is an introduction part. Now for each part I'll use some kind of databases. Okay, some SQL files. So you will directly like if you are learning, if you are watching the video of part 2, then access this folder of part 2. Okay, if you're watching the video part 3, then access this video and you will get the respective database from there. So now this is all about the practicing thing. So now let's continue the topic. So first of all, the first thing which we need to understand, like why we are learning SQL. Okay, what is the need of it? Okay, why the database is so important. Okay, and like why it is necessary. So the first thing is like let's try to understand about data. Okay, since like see, you already know about this, there is a lot of data going around us. Okay, there are domains of data. Like if I'm saying types of data, so there are like statistical data, meteorological data, natural, transport, geographical. Okay, so there are lot type of data. If I take a very simple example, suppose you are accessing your phone and you are using Facebook, Twitter, or any social network media platform. Okay, what actually you are using there? You are posting something, you are doing chats. Okay, so what you are doing actually, you are generating the data. So if you keep on generating the data every day, and if I have the whole collection of 1 month data or 1 year data of yours, in that case, I can predict something about your behavior through that data. Okay, because the data actually talks a lot. Okay, and based on that, I can put something in your Facebook, like I can put some ad in your Facebook, like basically based on data, I got something. Okay, I made some conclusions, like you like this type of thing. Okay, you are this kind of person and all of that. Okay, so there will be a lot of data points of yours. Okay, similarly every person has their own data point. So even if you are accessing any website, like even if you are going to Zomato, so what Zomato is doing, Zomato is also collecting your data. Okay, this person, how many orders this person has made, like in this month, how many order this person made in this year. Okay, based on that, and based on that they can like refer out something, they can conclude something. Okay, what is the favorite dish of that person, and we have to like show some pictures in front in his application only related to that data. Okay, suppose you like pizza, so in that case Zomato, like mostly you will they will show you pizza and burger and all those things. Okay, so that is the power of data. So if we have the data of like you can say a very long span of time, then we can predict something for the future. Similarly, if I talk about weather forecasting, with weather forecasting are doing, they are actually collecting everyday data of like what is the climate today, and based on that they are making a they have a data of last 15 to 20 years, and based on that they are making prediction for the tomorrow. Okay, what is the what may be the expected like climate of like tomorrow in your city. So this is what, and what that's what is actually happen in the stock market. Okay, there are a lot of data generating like which company stock is going up, which company stock like stock price is going down. This is all the information which they are capturing, and based on they are making the prediction. Okay, which company stock price can go up, which company stock price can go down. Okay, so there are a lot of prediction are making on that, basically on that data. If you want the data set, if you want that data, if you are if you want to see that data, then you can directly go to the kaggle.com. In the kaggle.com you will get a lot of data set like in different domain. Okay, in scientific, in cultural, in geographical, a lot of domain you will get the data, and you will get the feeling, okay, what is the power of data actually. So now we need something. If I want to basically make some prediction, so how I need somewhere where I can store that data. So where I will store data, so data is actually stored in the databases. Okay, data actually stored in the databases. Okay, but I need some application through which I can, like if I want, suppose I'm storing the restaurant data there. Okay, what are the what is the menu of like of my restaurant, what are the orders every person made, like all the information are present in that database, suppose respect to the restaurant. Now if the data is present there, then how can I fetch that data? Okay, I need something through which I can, if I want the if I want all the menus, all the menu item which actually which are from the category starters, I want all the starters of the menu, then how will I get that? So basically for that we need SQL. Okay, structured query language. What this SQL will do, through this SQL, if I want any particular data, like for this month how many orders are made, so I will directly write the query and it will get the data. Okay, so because the data is present in the database, but it is like very huge. Okay, but to filter something you will use SQL. Okay, SQL helps you in filtering the thing. So if I show you, so if I show you like select star from demo, here you can see that these are the okay, if I'll change this, if I import the database, okay, so if I write select star from menu, and if I run it, in this case you will get the, this is the query which I'm making on the database, and there are a lot of data which actually present. So how will I actually get this data? This data actually I'm getting by writing this query. So you can see there is a category like of starters. Okay, this is the name of the dish and there's a starters, there's a seed food, and this is the name of that dish. But if I only want to see the starter, so how will I? So I'll write a query for this where category equals to starters. Okay, and if I run this, then in that case you will see that I'll only get the starters. So this is if I have a 1 million like data entries, so from that also I just directly have to write the SQL query and it will make the changes. Okay, so that is the power of SQL. Okay, and now you understand that why we need database to store the data. Okay, and to store the data in particular format, SQL actually works on that data which is actually if the data is in rows and column in a table format. Okay, so now if you are storing something in the database, you need to store in a table format, like in a rows and columns. Okay, later chapter we will try to understand how we can create the table. Okay, how we can define the columns. So if you are storing the database in a database format, then SQL will directly, you can directly apply SQL on it. So now let's come, now you'll understand about something very important about data. Now in web development world, okay, we have a browser, basically that is known as front end. There is a web server and there is a database. Okay, so what browser will do, what front end will do, front end will request the web server, okay, I'll need this data, can you get this data for me? Okay, and what web server will do, web server will take the data from that database and give it to the browser, that is front end. And what front end will do, it will show you the data in a fancier way. If I show you, like if I go to any website like Myntra.com. So in the Myntra.com, like here you can see that there is a lot of data. What is data I'm talking about? So this is the data. Basically, you can see that there is a lot of data which is actually coming from the database. Okay, and if I click on like on any particular section, I'm getting this data, like this data respect to that t-shirt. So it is actually the name of that t-shirt, okay, which we are getting from the database, and this is the, you can, the photos which we have also stored in some database. So now here you can see that, okay, so there is a lot of content. And if I want to make some query, okay, so if I'm only selecting the Puma, so in that case, what is happening, like it is actually querying the database and saying that, hey database, please give me this data of only Puma. Okay, don't give me everything. So what I'm doing, so if I write here, so this is the way how the way we are actually changing the starters, the way we are actually changing the category. In the same way, we are, what we are doing, we are here changing the like brand. Okay, so if I want to query something like that in the database, so I'll just need to write category equals to Puma. Okay, Puma, and I need to select from the not from the menu table, from the you can say from the Myntra. Okay, or you can say from t-shirt, from t-shirt table. Right now I don't have t-shirt table, but I'm just showing you, if I have the database on, how will I write the query. So let's start from t-shirt table and where category equals to Puma. Okay, so this is the way, actually this is how we are actually fetching the data. So basically, okay, so database is actually getting the data from the database. Now in the front end, you can see that they are showing me like in a lot fancier way, more user interactive way. Okay, so that's why if I click on this, okay, I'll get more data about that product. Okay, this information is actually coming from the database. Okay, but the data is actually in a very raw format. So what front end is doing, it is managing and arranging that data in a front end, like in a very beautiful way. Okay, so if I'm talking about Zomato is actually doing the same thing. Okay, if you go to the Zomato website, here you will say they, in the fancier way, they are representing the data to me. Okay, because to increase our user interactivity, if they don't make their basically front end interactive, then I will not be so much interested like in exploring this basically this website. So this is the point, like why and if I'm clicking something, so this data actually I'm getting from the database. If I'm clicking on that, it is requesting the backend and telling them, please get the data of this snack point, and I'm getting all this data from that corresponding to that snack point restaurant. I'm getting the data from the database. Okay, and this is what backend is actually providing me. So whenever I want to put some request, I will ask to the backend, and backend will do that job to me, and it will go to the database. Okay, using SQL, it will query the database and will get the data and give it to the browser. Okay, this is the paradigm how actually it works. So basically, there is a client which asks for the server. Okay, query the server, and server will search that thing in the database, and it will respond that data to the client. Okay, so this is a basic you can say front end. Basically this is the front end. Here you have homepage, card, registration, and in the back end there is some like server is running, that is PHP server. And if you want something like in the front end, if you want some pictures, if you want to go to the some order what orders you have made, like anything, then in that case it will try to access it to the server, and server basically asks that data from the database. So now which data exactly I'm talking about? Okay, and where to store the data. So basically the data which I'm talking about is actually, okay, so basically the data which I'm talking about is, I've already shown you, like this data. Whatever data is coming, like I'm talking about this data which is actually coming from the database. Okay, so if I, even if I, so this is the data which I'm talking about, like this snack point, like whatever data I'm getting from the database. If I'm going to Mintra, so this is the data. So all of the data whichever is coming, okay, it is actually coming from the database. Okay, this is very rarely something which is actually static. Okay, so you can say that this is a static data, this is not coming from the database. Okay, they have already put in the front end, but there are a lot of which is actually dynamically changing. So you can see that this thing. Okay, so this data actually coming from the database. And if I make the order, if I make this order and I add this product, then that's what is happening. So this, I'm storing something to the, in that case, database. What is I'm storing? My order information. Okay, I have made this order and I've made the payment. So all this information actually is storing the database. So basically the database actually is basically the query is related to type two things. Okay, it is have two types. So the first type is like if you are querying something and if you are storing something. So this is what like querying means. If I'm clicking on this, so basically I'm querying the database, I'm asking some for information. And if I'm making the order, so what I am doing, I'm storing something into the database. I'm storing something into the database, and database is actually, so basically I'm storing some information. Like what information I'm storing there? Like my order information, like I have made this order. Okay, so so now later I can also check my order and I can also track my order, like where it is right now. So how I able to do that? Because data has also stored that information. So there are actually two types of things which we use, two type of operation we use to do in a database. That is query. Like if I want to get some information, this is like how I'm getting the information. And basically that is saving operation. Saving operation, like if you're saving something into the database. So now let's move to the, this is the data which I'm talking about. Okay, where to store the data? So we used to store the data in databases. Okay, so basically there are different kind of database where you can store the database, state the data. So basically one kind is relational in a row and column format. Okay, so this is a general database. This is like whenever you in school and you have a attendance report, and or even if you are report card, so that is actually in a rows and column format. So much more of the data you will see that in a relational format, like rows and column. So analytical, so this is another type of database. This is a key value, this is column, family, graph, document. Okay, for it depends upon the application which database we are using. So I'm just giving a little bit view. And the database which will work is actually relational. SQL is actually work on this relational database. Relation means basically tables. Okay, so now how to store the data? So basically we need SQL. Okay, so user works in the backend, and this is there's a front end and there's a backend. But how user actually storing the data? So to store the data, there is actually another type of queries, okay, through which we used to like store something into the database, which we'll learn in part 3, like how to insert the data, how to update the data, how to delete the data. Okay, because we are making some changes in the database, we are adding something to it. Okay, in these operations. So user works with the front end, and user actually make the request to the backend, and backend basically backend will store that data for you in the SQL, in the basically in the table using SQL. Okay, so SQL helps in like to work around in that table. If you want to create the table, you are using SQL. If you want something from the database, like from that table, so what you will do, you use SQL. So SQL like performing that job for you. It is like a security guard which is standing outside of it, and if you want anything, so SQL, that security guard will do that for you. Even if you want to create something, if you want to allot some room in this, like you can say in this apartment. Okay, so in that case, that security guard will do for you. Okay, if you have some item is remaining present in this apartment, if you want to call someone which is who are living in this apartment, in that case also you will call the security guard. Okay, so you need SQL basically if you want to fetch something, if you want to store something. So this is the story actually. So this is a table format. Like if you want to store like some information, like which person is like from which country. So basically name, age, and country. So Natalia, like whose age is 11 and she's living in Iceland. So this is the basically a name table, age table, and country table. So even if you are working in your like suppose you want to work on some e-commerce website, okay, so in that case also you have to define the database, what all tables you need. Okay, so now in the table you first need the like customer table where you will store the information of customer, because in Amazon also when you are doing sign up, it is taking your information, like give me your information like name, age, email, something something. Okay, now there is one customer table, then also there is one order table, there is one product table where they have the information of all the product which they have which are present in Amazon. Okay, so many tables are required, like if you are working for any like web development project. So basically why we need SQL, as I said, you need SQL if you want to query something into the database, and if you want to like if you want to store something into the database. Okay, but because it is because like suppose you have made the order today, but how will you get the information tomorrow? So database actually have the storage, and they have stored that thing into the basically the data is actually stored in that database. So whenever you want the data, you just have to query it. Okay, so how you are querying about your orders data? Basically you are going to the amazon.com and you are going to the order section. So what you're doing, you are querying the database, please show me the information of all my orders. Okay, so in behind the picture SQL is working if they are using relational, basically relational tables. Okay, so because there are maybe they are using different database, so in that case we used to query in different way. So let's talk about relational model. Okay, what is a relational model? So basically in relational model, table is called a relation. So basically this is a, you can say uh, in chapters in database concept, we used to learn this concept of relational model. So in that table is known as a relation. Okay, and here you can see that there are some rows and there are some columns. Okay, so column is actually known as, say you can see that this customer ID, customer name, status is actually attributes, and every row is actually we named it as tuple. Okay, we used to call this each row as a tuple. Okay, and this is our primary key. Primary key is something which is actually unique. Okay, if I'm talking about a roll number of a student, like for any particular class, because roll number is unique to each student, because if I want to get some information of any student, I'll just ask him for his roll number. Even if I'm like making any transaction in the like any website, okay, like in Flipkart or Amazon, so they will give me a transaction ID. So transaction ID is actually unique, like is every time unique. Why? Because if I'm calling to a customer care, like if something like happened wrong with my product, then in that case I can just directly give him the like my order ID or something. Or if I'm calling to the bank, like something bad happened to my transaction, so I need to share my transaction ID because that is unique to myself. Okay, so I'll explain this primary key concept in the later chapters, okay, in detail. And this is the attributes. This is basically, this is a table we called as a relation, and every row is known as tuple. Okay, and these you can say heading, customer ID, customer name, status are my attributes. Now, what is actually a query language? So a language which you use to store and retrieve database from the database is known as query language. So this is very obvious. I told you about this SQL, which what SQL is actually doing. So basically, what is a query language? Which you use to store and retrieve the data. So this what we have done in the Zomato and Myntra. Okay, either we are retrieving the data or we are storing something in your data. If you want any information of any particular t-shirt, you are clicking on that, you are retrieving the data. If you like any t-shirt and if you order it, then you are storing something into the database. So there are two types of query language, that is procedural query language, non-procedural query language. Okay, that is of two types, procedural and non-procedural. So what is a procedural query language? So basically in procedural query language, user instruct the system to perform a series of operation to produce a desired result. Okay, so basically user telling the system, perform this operation and I want this result. For example, if you call your brother and you ordered him like please make a tea for me. So in that case, but he doesn't know how to make the tea. Okay, So you know what is the final to what is the desired result you want. You want basically a tea. Okay. So in that case, you will, but your brother don't know how to make tea. So in that case, you will guide him of all the, you will give him all the steps, like take the you can say take the bowl, okay, put some water, add some add some basically tea, and add some you can say add some sugar or all those things, add some milk. So these are the steps which you are actually providing to your brother. Okay. And why you are providing to your brother? To produce a desired result. And what is the desired result? To make the tea. Okay. So this is procedural querying language, where you will provide, like if you want some if you want some output from the database. Okay. If you want to see what all products are there, if you want to see if you want to see if you want to search for pizza. Okay. So you are asking to the system, please get pizza for me. Okay. So in this case, I'm just directly searching pizza. But if you are writing the query, then you have to show those steps to the you have to share that steps to the database, that I'm please get me the pizza, and through these steps. So what do I mean actually? If I go to sqlonline.com, so here you can see that if I want to ask for whole menu, sir, I'll directly query it, select star from menu. Okay, don't worry about the query, we will go in detail, but just I'm giving you a little bit of glimpse. So select star from menu, here I'm getting all. But if I want only the starters, if I only want the starters, or you can say yeah, if I only want the starters, so what I'll do, where category equals to starters. So if I run it, so I'll only get the starters, but I only want that starters which is actually from the veg category. Okay. So what I'll write, and type equals to veg. If I run this, so in this case, I am only getting this. So what is my desired result? So what is the desired result? What I want? Like in the example of tea also, the desired result was like I want tea. But in this case, I want those starters who are from the veg category, because I am a vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian, so I want vegetarian starters. Okay. So for that, I am telling the system, please perform these steps. This is like how I told my brother, like these are the steps, like take the bowl, take the add tea, add sugar, or add milk. So this is that as a step I'm providing to the brother. In the same way, I'm providing those same steps to the system, like these are the query, please perform this and give me my desired result. Okay. That is known as, you can say, procedural language. That is procedural query language, where actually I'm giving something to the system and telling, like, please perform this query, and I want all those starters which are from the vegetarian category. Okay. So this is all about procedure query language. And if you are not giving any steps, if you are not giving the step, then in that case, it is known as non-procedural query language. Okay. If you are not telling, user instruct the system to produce a desired without telling the step-by-step process. Okay. Here user tells what data to be retrieved from data, but doesn't tell how to retrieve. Here I am telling my brother, like, just make some tea. Okay. And if he show, but I'm not telling him the steps. Okay. He need to figure out by himself. So this is basically a chart. A query language has two types, procedural and non-procedural. In procedural, relation algebra came. Okay. In procedural, basically relation algebra came, and more non-procedural, relational calculus came. Okay. These all are actually conceptual. Basically, these are your, you can say, conceptual concepts. Okay. And using these relational algebra and relational calculus, the practical concept, the practical thing, okay, application is SQL. Okay. And SQL is actually made from these relational algebra and relational calculus. So I'll just explain you. So basically, I'm going to explain like a little bit about relational algebra. Okay. So before going to relational algebra, let's talk about algebra. Okay. What is an algebra? So if I'm talking about algebra consists of, like, in your mathematics, you have you know about basically the algebra thing. So in algebra, there are something known as, okay, so suppose you have some there are some elements in the algebra. Okay. There are some operation in the algebra, and there are some axioms in the algebra. Okay, so if I'm talking about, there are a lot of different type of algebra. Like if I'm talking about Boolean algebra, okay, what is Boolean? Basically means true and false, 1 and 0. Okay, so what is Boolean algebra? In Boolean algebra, we used to work on 1 0. Okay, if I want to add like this 1 plus 0, that comes to 1. Okay, basically there are and or operation in Boolean algebra. But right now, just try to understand, like there are elements, there are operation, and there are theorems. Okay, so if I'm talking about a normal algebra, like in the normal algebra, mathematical algebra, there are some elements. Okay, the elements are like suppose numbers. Okay, and what are the operation like present in this algebra? So the number of the operation is actually addition, subtraction, division, subtraction, division. Okay, and there is also some axioms, there are some rules, okay, which we need to take care of, like during this, like when we are actually applying this one. Okay, so basically the axiom is like if you are adding something to it, like then it is actually giving me this result. Okay, so now, but if I'm talking about this algebra, okay, so similarly there are different type of algebra. There are, you can say, Boolean algebra. Okay, if I'm talking about a Boolean algebra, if I'm talking about a Boolean algebra, in Boolean algebra, the elements are, there are three things I told you. There are elements. In Boolean algebra, the elements are 0 and 1. Okay, because we are going to perform operation only on these elements, 0 and 1. Operation. And what is this element actually? This element is actually is the input, which will go to our algebra, and it will go to the operation. And through this operation, through some rules, that is our axioms, through, like it will perform the operation but using like under this rules. Okay, and it will provide the output, and this input is the elements. Similarly, the elements is 0 1. And if I'm talking about the operation, what are the operation of Boolean algebra? So operation are basically or, and not. Okay, these all are the operation for the Boolean algebra. What is or? Like if you are doing 1 or 1, that will give you 1. Now there is a third thing which is as known as axioms. Okay, that are the rules. So rules say that if you are doing the 0 not, then in that case it will give you 1. If you are doing 0 or 0, then it will give you 0. Okay, so this is the basically for like for every algebra there are elements, operation, and axioms. Similarly, if I'm talking about the relational algebra, okay, so there are elements. And what are the element? What is it? It will take as an input. In the input, it is actually take the relations. What is relation? Relation basically means tables. The input is actually the table. Okay, it will take the table. And if you are talking about the operation, in the operation, there are different type of operations like in the relational algebra, that is select, okay, project, and union. Select, project, and union. Okay, don't confuse this select with the SQL select. Okay, this select is different from the SQL select, which I was writing in that panel. Okay, and there are some axioms. So here you can see that like this is actually your element, this is your operation. Okay, and these are actually some rules which you need to take care of, like while applying these operations, select, project, union, and you will apply these all these operation on this relation table. Okay, so this is all about relation algebra. So now this is our query language. This is procedural, non-procedural, and this is relation algebra. This is relation calculus, and it is actually giving rise to SQL. So relational algebra and calculus are the theoretical concept used on a relational model. Okay, relational model basically means I talked about that table. Okay, So relation model, what is relation model? Like the table which you used to call as a relation, and the row is actually known as a tuple. So that is actually a relation model. So relation algebra and calculus, relation calculus are the theoretical concepts which you used to learn on books and like on COP, or like as a like in database concepts. Okay. And what is RDBMS? RDBMS is basically the practical implementation of the relational model, like those software which we are using, like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite. Okay, so there are different type of SQL versions are here. So basically, SQL is a practical implementation of relation algebra and calculus. Here you can see that SQL actually is the practical implementation. These we used to learn in our notebooks, but SQL is the practical implementation. Okay, which we are using live in our softwares. Okay, and those softwares actually are coming in comes in RDBMS. Okay, relation database management softwares. Okay, so is a practical implementation of a relational model. So what operations are present in relation algebra? I have shown you like two operations: select a project, but there are different operations like projection, cross product, select, union, set difference, join, rename. Okay, just take care this just take this information as a knowledge. Okay, don't just go into like depth of it. I'm just showing you like what all operation relation algebra has, and these same operation is actually same in the SQL. Okay, but like the operation which we used in in our notebooks, like in database concept, those operations are actually directly converted into the SQL. Okay, so I was saying like these operations. Basically, these operations are directly converted into SQL in the format of query. Okay, when we learn SQL, then you will understand. Okay, what all operations are there. Okay, when we used to do those and conceptually in our notebook, so this is like this. Okay, but when we are using the query, when we are writing the SQL query, those are actually the same operation. Okay, but we used to write the query in a very different way. Okay, so suppose if I'm taking an example of relation algebra. Okay, suppose I have a subject table and ID, name, and department. Okay, this is just a little bit example of that relation algebra: ID, name, and department. And this is the ID, name, and department. But I only want the name and department columns. In that case, I will write pi. Pi is actually for the projection, for getting the columns. So I will write name, comma, department, what column I want, and inside the brackets I will write like in which table I'm performing this. So this is actually my table name, and this is the name and department. It will give me the output: name, department, date, CSE, data structure, CSE, electrical engineer, like all of this. So basically what I have done, this is the relation which I'll give as an input to my basically relation algebra. This is the input which I've given to my relation algebra, and I perform my operation. The operation is basically project operation. And after performing my project operation, I'll get this as output, where name and department is the output, name column and department column. Similarly, if I'm using the SQL, if I'm the SQL, okay, so here you know that key, this is my complete table. This is my complete table. But if I want only the, suppose if I only want the name and price. So in the case of name and price, if I'm talking about relation algebra, I just have to write pi, name, comma, price, and the table name, that is menu, instead of subject. But if I'm talking about in SQL, how I will write it? So basically I need to write it like select. Okay, after writing the select, I need to write like which basically column I want: select, name, and price. Okay, and after writing name and price, I need to write from which table. So the table is actually menu table. So I need to write in this way. Okay, so here you can see that in the difference in relation algebra concept and here in the SQL concept. Okay, this is the SQL is as you know, this is a practical implementation of those concepts. Okay, so this is the theme actually. So on notebooks, actually on database concept, we used to learn a relation algebra, and that the practical software is actually SQL. Okay, so if I'm talking about database management system, okay, so database is a collection of data, but the computer program that interact with the database are called database management system. Okay, the computer program that interact with the database. So computer program, what computer program? SQL Server, SQLite, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Octane. So there are different, like a lot of, you can say, softwares are there which used to basically like help in interacting with the database. Okay, that interact with the database. Okay, so there are some difference in these softwares. Okay, but the main principle is same. There are SQL standard. Okay, there are the standard which is defined by these standard, you can say institution, the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, ISO, ANSI, and NC. So basically, these are the institute which define the SQL standard. Okay, what standard should they follow? Should SQL follow? And based on that, our relation algebra, relation RDBMS softwares like PostgreSQL like works on the same. Okay, so relation algebra and calculus are the theoretical concepts, as I said before, theoretically used on relational model, and RDBMS is a practical implementation of the relation model. So those software which which I have shown you, like those PostgreSQL, SQLite, my MS SQL, okay, MySQL, like all of these. And SQL is a practical implementation of relational algebra and SQL, and that SQL is actually present in all these all these softwares. SQL is also present here. SQL is also present here. SQL is also present here. Okay, but there is a little bit difference. Okay, like a little bit of syntax difference. Okay, but the main operation which they used to do is same. Yeah, that's all for the part one. Okay, now we'll move to part two, where we will try to understand about what is the SQL queries. Okay, yeah, thank you.